Good afternoon. I'm calling the meeting of the Internal Services Committee to order, and we'll pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I need a motion to adopt the agenda.
Romano adopts the agenda.
Zinner, support.
Commissioner Romano made a motion. Commissioner Zinner supports to adopt the agenda. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Motion passes 10-0. Oh,
Thank-
11-0.
Thank you. Next item is the approval of the minutes of October 13th for the Internal Services Committee. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion approved, Farrington.
Thank you, Commissioner Farrington, supported by Commissioner Wallace to approve the minutes. Are there any discussion? Hearing none, please vote.
Motion passes 11-0.
Thank you. Item 5, public participation. This is the first opportunity for public participation for those wishing to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes on any item on today's agenda. There's an opportunity for public participation later, which will be for any issue, but right now for today's agenda. Anyone from the public wishing to address public participation? Second call? Third call? Closed. Item 6, department recommendations. First item, 6A, a contract with Plante, Moran, Cresa for professional services for a capital development strategy and space needs assessment for the health department for $90,000 plus $2,500 reimbursable expenses. I need a motion to forward to full board.
Matusik moves.
Zinner, support.
Thank you. Was that Matusik? I didn't hear who moved that.
I did.
Thank you. Commissioner Matusik, supported by Commissioner Wallace, to move it forward to full board. Thank you. Lynn, you're on.
This item pertains to conducting a capital development strategy and space needs assessment for the health department and all public services currently being provided at the Verkulen building. Prior to the pandemic, it was our intent to renovate vacant space to accommodate the staff and also the functions of the health department currently housed in the Mount Clemens Health Center. As a result of the pandemic, the work environment and the delivery of services drastically changed. Due to this drastic change, it would make sense for us to take a step back and evaluate space needs as it relates not only to the impact of remote working, but also the use of technology in the delivery of services. In addition to assessing space needs, a capital development strategy would also evaluate the suitability and adequacy of the existing facilities, develop other creative facility alternatives, establish standards and benchmarks in the development of facility options. They would also provide associated budgets and schedule considerations. The capital development strategy and space needs assessment will allow the county to make informed decisions relative to proper space allocation and the capital expenditures necessary to house and deliver these public services. The purchasing department solicited a request for qualifications on the Mitten site. 446 vendors were notified of the solicitation. 36 vendors viewed the documents, and one request for qualification was received by Plant Moran Cresa. An interview team made up of various stakeholders conducted an interview with Plant Moran Cresa on October 8th, 2021. Based upon their submission and the interview, it was determined that Plant Moran Cresa possess the related project experience. Their team has the ability and the capacity to perform, has a clear understanding of the scope, a detailed technical approach to the project, and an acceptable delivery schedule and timeline. We are therefore requesting authorization to execute the contract with Plant Moran Cresa in the amount of $90,000 plus $2,500 in reimbursable expense. Funding for this project is available in the capital plan.
Thank you. Commissioner Brown?
Thank you, Lynn. We're looking at, they're evaluating space needs for their existing structure. They're going to tell us dimensions possibly, or
They're actually going to provide layouts, preliminary layouts. They're going to look at adjacencies of departments. They're going to focus on the public service areas. Historically, when you had an architect come in, they would ask the typical questions. How many staff do you have? How many offices do you need? How many workspaces do you need, or workstations? Because of the remote working that we believe is here to stay, or at least a hybrid version, you actually can have the space available for the public service area. So you're not designing for offices that are for somebody's exclusive use or workstations. So they'll be able to better allocate the space. They will also look at the building restrictions. You can only do so much in terms of laying out something because of the way the building is constructed. So they will look at that. They will also, with the health department, has 2 satellite locations. They're going to look at the data. They're going to look at the demographics. There may be a possibility that we only need one facility strategically located when you see the development of technology in relation to providing services. So they will look at all that. And this will give you financial information on how much it would cost, options available, so that you can make a decision based on facts.
so we're going to have to hire an architect when they're done with their process.
Yes. Yes.
And they're not an architectural firm.
No, they're not.
Has the team explored leasing space, existing space in the area
Well,
how many
is-
square feet do we need? I guess maybe we don't know this till they're done perhaps, but
That's correct, but they are also going to look at the lease or buy options or new construction. They are going to give you all those elements.
because there's a lot, all right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Zinner?
Thank you, Chair. Lynn, I think you started your statement out with talking about last year. And I assume you're talking about the whole situation with the pandemic.
Yes.
I know you're talking about looking at other factors and other situations in the government and people staying home, working from home. But I really don't know exactly what all those areas look like. I've seen some of them. But is this, I guess my question is this expecting another big problem? Or was this in the plans before last year?
Well, what we were going to do, there's about 32,000 square feet of vacant space at the Verkulen building. The state of Michigan used to be located in that facility. And it seemed that what we were looking at was to renovate that space for the Mount Clemens what was the staff and functions in the Mount Clemens Health Center. So we were going to relocate those people and eventually demolish the Mount Clemens Health Center. We think because of the remote working, we believe it's a game changer, and that you really need to step back and take a look at how you're allocating this space, and it should be based on function, not the fact that you have X number of employees. So it's allowing us to make more of an informed decision.
And what is the cost of this again?
It's $90,000.
thought.
It would take about 4 months to complete, and there's a reimbursable expense that they don't believe will exceed $2,500.
And this is just for the assessment?
Yes. That's the space needs assessment and the capital development strategy.
You know, I want our citizens who have needs to be met. But, all right, thank you very much.
Commissioner Kraft?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hi, Lynn. Vicky, you may be able to help with this one, or Lynn may be able to take it. So help me through this process, because there are obviously multiple departments in this one facility, and you have multiple department heads, obviously. You know, Ernest has Macomb Community Action. We've got some CMH, you know, with our CEO, Dave Panketai. Are they included in that process with Plant Moran in the executive's office to determine needs, you know, whether things shift, you know, stay or go and space needed? Is that how that works?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, we met with them preliminarily to lay out our ideas, thought processes, make sure they were comfortable with the process. And then we went out with the RFQ. And then, yes, they will be included in that basically from beginning to end.
Okay. And then is there, I know the timeline for this portion of the project, but is there any sort of guesstimate going forward if it is decided to move forward, whether it be with this space getting changed or a new space? Is there any sort of timeline? Because I know the funds for the main project, right, are coming from ARP?
Correct. That would be our hope once we get this back is, and then we have all three of the projects we've talked about to bring those back to the board and to decide how we're going to spend the ARP fund. So we would have until 2025 to complete the entire scope of this project, wherever it leads us.
Got it. Thank you both. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Matusik?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My one question was about the ARP money, so Phil asked that question. That's good. One of the problems we have that I encounter with constituents all the time is we have so many phone numbers and so many services, and they're located here and there. So I am very much in favor of something that makes it easier for our constituents to access the services that we have. I mean, it's hard to even know all of the services that we offer. So I'm in favor of this rethinking how we provide services, where we provide services, in the manner in which our employees work. I think that this is really important so that the citizens in Macomb have access to services in the most efficient and economical way. So I very much am in favor of this proposal. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I have a couple of questions. The space under question is 32,000 square feet. Is that the whole building, or is there more to that building?
The building's about 120,000 square feet.
How does the other space stack up? Does that need to be freshened up, or?
Well, that's exactly what they're going to look at. They're going to look at all those public services within that facility and look at their space, their organizational goals, their missions, and see if the space is allocated correctly, and also if the adjacencies are correct.
So the 32,000 square feet would be targeted for the health department to move from the other building?
That was initially our thinking. There was a vacant space. We were going to renovate and move the functions and staff that were currently located in Mount Clemens Health Center. Due to the pandemic and the change in the work environment, it made sense to step back because maybe that isn't the best solution.
How big is this health center that the health department is currently in?
That was about 30,000 square feet.
Okay, so they'd be moving from 30,000 to 32,000. Is that because they need more space or just because that's the space that the state moved out of?
They said that the space was sufficient. This was when we talked about it years ago. The Mount Clemens Health Center, what that actually required was a whole new mechanical system. And that was priced out and that also involves a renovation. Once you have to vacate the building, you end up replacing everything. So that was in the neighborhood of $8 million. And then the building itself, it's from the 50s. Even though you could renovate it, it has an elevation difference. So it's still, even when we were in the planning stages, they were compromising a lot if we were to just renovate Mount Clemens Health Center.
So from what you were saying about workstations that might be not permanently assigned but shared,
Yes.
I would think that the health department might not need even the 30,000 square feet that they currently have. Is that?
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
So would we consider moving other departments in there into the renovated space if we renovate the whole building?
It may allow us an opportunity to do that.
What would be your first choice after the health department? I don't want to put you on the spot too much here.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can come up with a name. Currently, that building was designed, it was actually used to be called the Public Service Facility. So there was an attempt to put all the public services there. And I know I've come before this board before and talked about one-stop shopping. And they started to question me on that. How are you so sure that that's where the demand was for? And is that really what is happening? And I had to sit back and say, I don't know for a fact. So they may find that departments that maybe they're public service departments, they don't need to be there. And maybe another department may need more space. Maybe they need less space. It seems that maybe in some cases we shortchanged the public service area because we were trying to create offices for employees and workstations.
So your thinking is the space allocations for many or most of the departments in that building may be shuffled?
It very well could be.
Okay, so it's not a foregone conclusion that the health department's going to get the whole 32,000
That's
square feet?
correct. That's correct. It's going to be a rethinking of all that and all the space within the facility.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Zong?
Thank you, Chair. Lynn, I was wondering what are reimbursable expenses? I know that it's...
That's generally mileage when they drive out to the site, reproduction of documents, that type of thing.
Okay, so they get reimbursed for that
At
up to
their-
the
at
2,500
At cost.
at our cost.
No, at their cost, they're not tacking on an additional amount. It'll be, if they have to reproduce some documents, it'll be at what it costs them to reproduce or what their mileage was.
Okay, so this contract is for $90,000
That's correct. Plus,
plus the $2,500,
yes.
which is what they would be spending on mileage, papers.
They
et cetera.
said it would not exceed that. That's what they estimate the
Okay.
mileage or the
Okay.
reimbursables will
Got
be.
it, thank you. And my last question is regarding the other two satellite spaces. Is the plan to consolidate those, or will those spaces still be operating even after the space is built out?
They're going to take a look at that.
Okay, so-
Maybe we can consolidate in a different location, or then again, maybe we do need the two locations, and maybe that is where all the data is pointing to.
Is it that something that you would be able to determine, though? That if
Our
you were to
office.
need, and Vicky's nodding her head.
Sorry, yeah, I think through this process, that's the goal, is yes,
Okay.
and working with the departments and how, taking their service numbers, what services are they seeing? You know, maybe this comes out of that, we've talked in our conversations, maybe we need a small satellite in the northern end of the county or something where the population's growing. So all of those ideas and concepts are on the
Yeah,
table.
that was
but-
sort of where I was going is, to expand this 32,000 square feet of vacant space. I think it's still important to have those satellite sites, especially in the south end, the one on Van Dyke. And maybe, residents don't want to drive to the Herculean building or even if that's the central location. I think that it's still important to have those spaces.
Right, and overall, we agree with you, yes, and that's not our goal to like pull back. We actually think they need to stay there, but again, are they in the right location? Are they in the right building? Do we have the right departments grouped together? At the Southwest Health site, it's really just the health department, right now, but at Southeast, again, there's multiple service agencies, CMH is there, health department, MCA is at the Thompson Center. So we want to kind of look at that and go, do we have these in the right sites and locations for where the greatest need really is, and what does that look like?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Matusik?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is not a proposal to renovate a building. I think some people got off track on that. This is not about renovating a specific building. This is actually about rethinking how we provide services and where we provide services and the methods we provide services. So this is actually an opportunity to really reimagine how we do things so we can do them more efficiently, more effectively, and make it easier for our residents. We rarely get the opportunity to step back and reimagine how we do things, and this is a great opportunity, and using the TARP funds to push that forward, I think is a really good use of them. So I'm excited about this possibility. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Lynn, the building that the health department is currently in, you said if they did move out of there, we'd demolish that?
Yes, that's correct.
So it's in pretty bad shape?
Yeah, it's from the 50s. It needs an entire new mechanical system to the extent that we would have to relocate people. So when you do that, then you end up, putting in painting, carpet. It's a full renovation.
So it makes sense. I think I'm hearing that if we don't move them to this current building, that they need to get out of that other building anyway, so we're going to move
That's
them
correct.
at some point.
That's correct.
And why do you think that only one out of, you said over a couple hundred requests for quote or whatever you sent out. Why do you think we only got one?
I think this is somewhat of a unique study in that it has a real estate element to it. Certainly architects can sit down and do space planning, but they don't get into all the data, all the statistics, the demographics. Then also they don't get into different real estate options, whether you lease or buy or build. So I think it's sort of out of the comfort zone of architectural firms.
Thank you. Seeing no other speakers, please vote.
Chair will have to do a voice vote.
Thank you. Are you going to call them off? Oh, there we go.
Commissioner Kleinfeld?
Yes. Aye.
Chair
All those
Brown?
in favor say aye.
Yeah.
It's not, we don't need a roll call vote, we're not appropriating money. All in favor? Just for matter of procedure.
Okay, we'll do all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, on to 6B, agreement with information technology management agreements for the first quarter of 2022, package 1 for $1,914,374.40. Our IT director is here. Jaco, take it. Oh, sorry. A motion to forward to full board.
So move, Song.
Thank you. Commissioner Zong made a motion, supported by Commissioner Wallace, to move to full board.
Thank you, Commissioners. Good afternoon. This is the maintenance contracts that we do throughout the year. This specific request is for the first quarter of next year. And these are maintenance contracts that's due at that point in time. We have a few items that I just want to highlight. And for example, Adobe Systems, we were able to reduce from 80,000 this year to 68,000 next year. We were able to work out a deal with the city of Ann Arbor to buy off their contract, and they have an enterprise agreement with Adobe, and we were able to buy off of that, so it makes our average cost come down quite a bit. So that was a good change from last year. Other than that, you know, any of the items that increase, there's reasons for that, and it's mostly because we added users, bought additional licensing, and so forth. I have to tell you that every time we do the maintenance, we go through with the different vendors. We try to keep our increases around 3% or less. We believe that's reasonable. As soon as they go beyond that, we negotiate with them and try and get a better deal. So as Commissioner Van Sickle said, it's 1.914 million for this request. And the money is available in our general fund.
Thank you, Commissioner Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jaco, I just want to thank you for these continued updates and breakdowns and basically putting them in plain terms for us to show how it was last year compared to this year, and whether it's, you know, licensing software, things like that. So I really appreciate the continued breakdown. I know we've worked on this in the past, and I'm happy to see it's continuing it on, because I think it makes it a little bit easier for us that aren't as technically savvy as you are. So thank you, Jaco. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Commissioner Farrington?
Thank you, Jacob. Thanks for coming. So this is Q1, 1.9 million. How much do you think maintenance agreements in totality will be for next year?
About 5.5 million.
Okay.
We submitted that with our budget, and there's a number in
I
there.
couldn't
that's
remember. All right.
calculated.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Hall?
Thank you, Chair. Jaco, you just answered the question. I was looking for your budget page in a rather small book here, and you did indicate that that is in next year's budget. And I agree with Commissioner Kraft. I've never seen a breakdown of 20 different PDF files on any given budgetary item. And this is, you did indicate a quarterly.
Yeah.
So the rest of it is in the budget for next year?
That's correct, and we do come back as they are due. All the items, we come back to this board, and it's almost on a monthly basis, because the difficulty with that is, although we would like to do it quarterly, it's really, really difficult to get all of them in at once, because there's a lot of negotiations that go back and forth, you know. So as they become available, we bring them to the board and get approval for payments.
Thank you. That's all I have, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Zong?
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Jaco. How are you doing?
Hi, Commissioner.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the ImageSoft and the Presidio. Because I
Yeah.
see, you know, those-
ImageSoft ImageSoft is our e-filing system. That's how it originated. That's our e-filing system for the courts. So their whole e-filing system, which is the first system we implemented for the county, we used a vendor, an integrator, and that's ImageSoft. The other one that's also on here is Highland OnBase. The software that we use is Highland OnBase software, and then ImageSoft is an integrator. ImageSoft also has products that run on top of the Highland products. Things like TrueSign and so forth that they use as part of the system so that they can electronically sign documents.
Are they filing more e-files? Is that why there's a jump in the cost?
There's been an increase in licensing, as well, and then also some integration that we did in this past year. I think what we did was, if I remember correctly, we implemented a system for the courts, Smart Bench, AI Smart Bench. Just want to make sure. Yeah, we implemented a system called AI Smart Bench. It's something that the judges use when they're on the bench so that they can interact with the system. And it's specifically designed for that type of environment. So that's something we implemented this past year, and the maintenance on that is now added.
Okay. And then how about the Presidio,
Presidio,
the Cisco SmartNet?
yeah. So Presidio is our integrator or company that do all our Cisco work. So as I think most of the commissioners probably know, we implemented what we call software-defined networking this past year. It started with CARES Act funding, and then we also have a payment every year for the next 5 years at zero cost interest to continue the rest of it. That project will finish up here in the next month or so. So we're almost done with the complete implementation of that. The cost that's there is switches and equipment that was not upgraded as part of software-defined networking. They existing switches, and they do qualify as software-defined networking switches. So we didn't have to upgrade them, but they're not part of that project. But we have to pay the maintenance on those on that equipment.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
I was wondering about the Google item, that is marked year 2. Is it year 2 of a multi-year contract?
The Google item is just a 1-year contract. Are you talking about Google Onyx services?
It says Google Macomb County, June, Google Workspace Renewal, year 2.
Sorry, I just want to look that up, Commissioner.
I don't know about your list. In our list, it's near the top.
Yeah, I don't know about a year 2. I mean, Google we've implemented a long time ago, and it's been our system ever since. That is, for last year we paid $233,000, and this coming year is going to be $249,000. So there's a slight increase, but it's not year 2.
Okay, thank you. And the other question is about the dues item for the prosecuting attorney. The PACC,
Oh,
PAAM.
PACPAM. Sorry. PACPAM is a state-owned system, and we've been using PACPAM, as long as I can remember at the county. There's actually, in our upcoming budget for 23, there's actually a replacement of the PACPAM system in the works. So at this point in time, because this system has not been updated in a very, very long time, so the new prosecutor would like to update it to more of the more modern systems that's out there.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other speakers, please vote.
Motion passes 11-0.
Thank you. I'd like to take 6C and D together.
So moved, Song 6C and D together.
Thank you, and support from Haw. Commissioner Zong made a motion and Commissioner Haw supported for the budget amendment capital improvement fund Vic Wertz surveillance system for $49,700.
Commissioners, the surveillance item is one that I brought before you, as you know, last month. From our conversation last time and also questions after the fact, it seems like there's really two areas where we have concerns. And the one is the fact that it was a sole source request and didn't go out to bid, as well as looking for a better business case of why we want to do this. So what I would like to do is address the sole source item first. To address this item, what I would like to do is make a suggestion for the following action. I would highly appreciate it if we can do a sole source for this project alone, with the understanding that I will do an RFP in the first quarter of 2022 to establish a vendor for the next 3 years to do the county surveillance systems. The main reason I would like to do it this way is to manage a system that big with different vendors in our system, because potentially if you go and do every single project that you do separately, it's going to become very difficult to manage. That's the one concern. The other concern that I have, it is a security concern for us as well, because every vendor that we bring in to do this work, depending on where they work, and especially when public safety come into play, we have to get that vendor certified before they can do work in our buildings. So in that type of situation, it's just better for us to have one vendor that can do all of that. So that's something that I would suggest if the board would allow us to do that, and I will make sure that that bid goes out and get done in the first quarter of next year. And then regarding the second issue, I brought Larry as well as Ernest here today, and they can obviously speak for the two organizations really that brought the whole surveillance system to us as something that they want to implement it.
Thank you. Commissioner Kleinfeld?
Thank you, Chair. When we not too long ago did surveillance in the jail, put in new surveillance in the jail, correct?
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
And it was the same company, correct?
It was the same company, that's correct.
And that was not bid out as well, correct?
That one was not bid out. We had one last year, which was the new center over at, for the Department of Roads, the new center that they created, and that one was bid out.
Okay.
And they won that bid.
Just refresh my memory, because it's been a couple of years. Is the surveillance system the big issue that was at the jail
That's
that
correct.
didn't come before us at all?
That's correct.
Okay, so we've now put them in at the jail, and we're now going to put them in here. And your rationale for the RFP is that we be consistent and use the same company. So your rationale when you come back after you've done the RFP is, well, we've got this company in all these places, even though it never went out to bid any one of these times, to remain consistent, we're going to stay with this company. Doesn't that follow? Doesn't that logic follow to you?
I don't understand what you mean by, if we go out to RFP, it's not to say that this company is going to win the bid. So different company can win the bid.
No, but you said the reason you want to do that is to have consistency, to have the same company across the board.
That's correct.
We've already put this company into place, a huge project at the jail. We're putting them into place here. So by your own rationale, you would automatically be coming back with this company to maintain that consistency that you just said you want to maintain.
I wouldn't automatically come back with them. I would come back with this company as the company that win the final bid. I also just want to let you know, Commissioner, everything that's been done over the past 3 or 4 years, the downtown renovation project, Comtech, all of these systems was done by the same company.
And
they
I'm
were
not
bid
even
out.
opposed to the company. This whole thing started because there was not only a no bid, but it didn't even come to us for approval. I think it was around $500,000.
No, it was the final project was about 1.625, if I remember correctly.
Okay, but it was about 500,000 in when we figured out that this had not come to us for approval. So this isn't about the company. Please don't get me wrong. This might be the best company in the world. But by your rationale, if you want to maintain consistency, I don't see you coming back with another company after this company's already doing this, and now you're going to expand them here. So I see where so to me, I'd be shocked if you did an RFP and came back with a different company. Absolutely shocked, because you just said you want to maintain consistency. So I don't know what to do with that, but I just wanted to put it out there. I'm not saying that they may be the best company, and you may have chosen the right company from the get-go. I'm just not sure, once you've given me that rationale, what I do with that as a commissioner. I don't think we've had complaints about the company or the work that they did. So I'm just not sure what to do with that. It's not a judgment. Just wanted. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Matusik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just trying to understand what you said about coming back with a 3-year something. What would the 3-year thing be?
A commitment of 3 years of using one company to do all our surveillance work. In other words, everything that was any new projects or anything like that we do, what we do is we get pricing from them, how much they charge us per hour, how much they charge us for specific people that do the installations. All the people that usually work on those systems, the bid will include all that pricing, and they will have to stipulate that pricing for the next 3 years. If this price increases every year, they need to tell us that. And then that is the pricing, doesn't matter what.
So is that for new projects going forward, or are we actually talking about integrating all of the various surveillance systems that we have?
It's going to be for new projects moving forward, as well as all the maintenance of previous systems, with the caveat that if there are agreements in place that we have to honor, then obviously we have to honor those agreements. I quite honestly don't think there's many of those in place today.
Because that was going to be my next question. We just approved maintenance contracts for the first quarter. Are any of those
No, it's not
surveillance contracts?
No.
All right. And I know Joe always brings this up, and he's not here today, so I'll do it for him. I mean, the idea of integrating all of our surveillance systems into one cohesive plan is a very worthwhile goal. I strongly encourage we do that. Now I have a second question, which is probably the earnest question. This came to us, it was unclear why we needed this surveillance system. if it was a matter of theft, was it a matter of inventory control, what exactly is the problem? We got a variety of documents which frankly didn't tell me very much, and then we got a memo from you basically implying that this was CARES Act requirements because we got the COVID money. I would just like some clarity.
Yeah, I think Jaco was addressing the context of the bid. You know, usually when you have sole source, there are two reasons you'd have it, right? Either they have unique qualifications to do it, nobody else has, sometimes that happens, or there's an expedient nature. In this case, that was the reason that we proposed sole source. We have a large stockpile at central receiving. I sent you all the documents because I wanted everybody to be aware of what was at Wertz. It has the county archives. You saw how many archives were there? Did you see all of F&O's stockpile that they have there? Did you see the $5 million of PPE from the state of Michigan that we have there related to COVID? It's a large warehouse, certainly deserves surveillance, and there's an expedient nature to secure their surveillance. And I think that's what Jaco is saying, is that in the long term, we can do an RFP. We can't be in the business of incrementalizing the RFP to delay and cause confusion, which was the reason why we wanted to sole source it originally, to secure some surveillance quickly for the Vic Wertz warehouse that had a huge increase of utilization related to COVID. So in general, the nature of the operations have changed, but even if they hadn't, even if COVID hadn't happened, the pandemic hadn't happened, the nature of that facility that holds Lynn's department, right? Central receiving and purchasing and the archives, our mail rooms there. We have sheriffs there, the food programs there. The breadth of operations at the Vic Wertz warehouse certainly deserves surveillance. And so that was the business case we had for it, and the reason why, with the influx of the state surplus and stockpile for COVID, we wanted to quickly secure it with a sole source contract.
So that's my question. What is the nature of the pressure that we do this right now? Where does that come from?
I think it's overdue. You know, if the commission wants it to go out to bid to further delay the surveillance in there, you know, that's one route we could go. As we continue to increase operation at Vic Wertz, see the scope and scale expand of the operations there, we wanted to move as quickly as we could to make sure that we were safeguarding taxpayer funds and the utilization of taxpayer property.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Zinner?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your explanations, gentlemen. I like to see other companies have a chance also. However, I just assumed when I went there, I guess I wasn't looking for cameras. I mean, I think I saw inside you had cameras.
No, I had the same notion, Commissioner.
Yeah.
It's past due that we do have them. And again, as Jaco mentioned, we're going to look at the whole county for their surveillance needs to make sure they're integrated. Certainly, I agree with the commissioners. We want competition. We want diversity of bids for all of us to choose from for the larger project. But we had the same inkling that we need to move quickly and make sure this is secured with surveillance now. The quickest way to do that was to use an existing proven vendor with a sole source contract.
Well, I like proven vendors. I like proven people who you can trust. You've been there. I think Jaco had mentioned before, this can all tie in with anything in the future. And if you have a phone call to make up whatever situation, it's nice to have it all together. You know, it's nice when we're all together versus, you know, when we were on Zoom, whatever it was. I think it should be done. I just assumed it was done in this day and age, and there's a lot of things in there, a lot of
That's right.
people in there.
That's
There's
right.
all kinds of things, and
Yeah.
things need to be safe for our citizens. I think it should be done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Wallace?
Thank you, Chair. The last time this was brought up at full board, I did ask, was there anything else in the building? Because before we were only talking about a food bank. So now it's all of these entities that we're discussing, and you said, you know, you're trying to make this happen, you want to get it done, and if the commissioners want to delay it anymore, then, you know, it's kind of on us. However, if there were no surveillance in there before, then you already knew that you needed it. So it's not really on us, it's on you to have gone through the process. So if it's delayed, it's not really on the commissioners because we want to follow process. So now it's not just a food bank. I'm still, and I understand that there's a lot of items or a lot of things that need to be secured. We asked, what needed to be secured, and we got the email. It was like, what, $1,200 of?
Yeah, and I'm sorry for the misstart on that context there. And to be clear, that is if you've been to the building, it is barbed wire gated with a lock access code. It was sufficient security in general for the previous operations. The influx of community organizations coming into the building has tremendously increased. I do believe that previously it was sufficiently secured for the use and purpose of that facility. But as it's evolving in its use, I think that led us to question the surveillance.
Okay, so this is now about overall securing this building. It's not about $1,200 of food being stolen, or maybe being stolen, or never being stolen. It could be somewhere they just don't know. It's not about that.
Yes, Commissioner, that's correct.
Okay, and now, now that that's understood, so now we're looking at putting this in and then doing bids?
In
Can
general,
you
I think the
explain that?
proposal is.
The timeline, yeah.
The timeline with the bids is just because, if we can get this system in and done, great. What the bid does, I believe, does satisfy your concern with us not taking this out to bid. My hesitation with that is, and that's from my standpoint, the main reason I wanted sole source was because if I have a different vendor that come in and do this, will the systems, number one, be compatible with what I have today? Do I now have to manage multiple vendors coming into multiple buildings? There's also sheriff presence in that building, which means they will have to be CJIS certified prior to them working in that location. So there's a lot of things like that that obviously from our standpoint is a concern from an IT cybersecurity standpoint, but also from managing vendors, multiple vendors, to run a system like that. And that is my main concern. That's why I would like to go out to bid for any future projects over the next 3 years. We will use whoever win the bid.
Okay, so we would, if this is approved, we would quickly get them started and then go out to bid for the county. And I'm just trying to figure this out. If we get, say, a year for this property, and then we start, when does the 3-year start? I'm looking at it, are we going to interfere with another contract that we're getting into now that we're going to bid after just putting this in? You know what I mean? If we go with a different company.
The reality of this, Commissioner, and I completely understand that concern, and that is exactly our concern as well, is that when you work with this, and I know that we have to go out to bid, and I do think that in general we have a pretty good record of going out to bid. I've done a lot of RFPs and RFQs this year. The thing is just when you work with multiple vendors on the same system, it becomes complex. What you just mentioned is when you have these small projects, they all start on different dates. Their maintenance run out on different dates, so it becomes very complex. If you have one vendor that manage everything for you, you can work with that vendor to back and forth to make sure that you know when systems need to be replaced, and so forth, quality of systems. When there's eventually 3, 4, or 5 vendors involved, it just becomes so much more difficult. And some of the stuff that we do, some of the surveillance stuff, we pull back to Comtech, and we have to preserve that data. Whatever system needs to be in place need to be compatible with what we do today. So that we can do that because we have to pull data over from different systems. So there's a lot of areas like that that's difficult for us. So I hope that helps.
Do you know, or maybe you can guesstimate, like a timeline from the time you put out the bid to when you pick someone and kind of implement this into multiple places?
A timeline for bids, it's anywhere from probably about a month to 2 months.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Commissioner Kraft?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I want to compliment Jaco, Ernest, and Larry back there for providing the information because the math wasn't adding up to me before in the previous meeting. $50,000 system for $1,200 of misplaced missing goods. But seeing the bigger numbers, obviously the bigger picture makes a little bit more sense. But I'm also looking at the average monthly value back in 2020 of items that were in the facility, and along with the 2020 CARES Act inventory. And I'm curious when we started to stockpile CARES Act inventory at that facility, because I'm trying to get to the point of us being rushed to do this, because we are now nearing the end of 2021, and we started to get materials, third quarter, fourth quarter of 2020? So we've had those rolling in since then. And I'm trying to figure out the timeline here as to go out for bids for security camera project isn't that in depth. That's not going to take that long. So to put the pressure on us to do this way is frustrating in my mind because I know we've had that inventory and that stockpile for months now. So when did we start really getting that influx of materials from the CARES Act into that facility?
I think part of the clarification is not just the CARES Act. Our emergency management department coordinates with the state of Michigan, the hospitals, the school districts, fire, police. There are a variety of ways that the state has coordinated with us outside of the CARES Act dollars. And I certainly appreciate your frustration. It's not our intention. All I can say is it was all hands on deck.
Sure.
I was personally there packaging care packages for seniors.
Right.
I mean, all of us were chipping in all ways after hours, trying to get this out. We saw the state of Michigan Mask Up Michigan campaign. We got over 180,000 masks out to the community.
And we have a ton of materials and the whole team, obviously this past year, it's been obviously chaos and a whole new world basically. So I'm not faulting that. I'm just wondering, I'm trying to piece together the timeline for the sake of the rush right now. Is this something that could have been avoided? Did we know when we were getting the CARES Act items that we would need this sort of system? Yeah, that's just what I'm trying to piece together. I'm not trying to lay blame anywhere because it was chaotic. I'm just trying to piece it together for my own peace of mind.
It's a reasonable request, Commissioner. Absolutely. The strain of the capacity of the county to administer all of these programs. Could have we done this earlier? Yes, we should have. Absolutely. Is it still needed? Yes. And I think a broader question, to facilities and operations, to emergency management, could help us coordinate all of the many uses we've experienced at that facility this past year.
Sure, and obviously looking at the updated numbers, I would agree that it's absolutely needed. So thank you all for the additional information. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Romano?
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Afternoon.
Smile, Jacob, it ain't that bad. That's better. Apparently, this is very time sensitive. At least to me, it seems like it's very, very time sensitive. We've got a current vendor that we may be using who's already certified, so we have to be concerned about that. And as far as the continuity is concerned, I think every commissioner here, when this goes out for RFP, if we see a lower price when this comes in, I think we're going to say, regardless of what JACO wants, hey, if we can get the same service from a cheaper vendor, let's go with him. So in all fairness to what JACO has said, the continuity is there. We can get it implemented almost immediately. I really don't think we should fool around with it. Only takes one break-in, guys, to get egg on our face. And there's a lot of stuff in there that wasn't in there before. So as far as I'm concerned, I see the need, I see the timeline involved here, so I actually have absolutely no problem with this. As long as that RFP goes out, then we can see that as soon as possible. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Farrington?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, guys. A couple questions. If I understand right, you're saying the need is there because we have more items due to COVID. At the same time, you said there's a lot more people coming through because it's a locked facility, but there's no knowledge of what's going on once they're in the facility, correct? from a camera standpoint? There's no cameras. so.
It is a controlled environment, absolutely. If you go back to the central receiving office where the archives are, you have to be escorted. We have staff there with eyes and check-in points in a lot of the existing areas, such as...
Because you just said, hey, it has to be secured because there's archives there, but now you're saying they're protected anyway, so that's not an issue.
The county has always been fastidious about making sure we have protocols in place to safeguard
Okay.
county property and public records.
So is there an influx of community groups, that was your words, or is it just employees of Macomb County?
The community groups. We were using, let's see, I have some examples here. I believe we had local hospitals coming out, local fire and EMS, independent EMS agencies, municipal offices, school districts, a lot of the senior congregate living facilities, urgent care centers, medical facilities, the homeless providers around the county, all were coming to central receiving at that location to receive some of that PPE. So that didn't happen in traditional times. So because of that, there are a lot more actors in there. Now,
But going forward, are we still going to have that issue? I mean, I'd like to believe we're on the tail end of this.
I
It seems
would
like
to believe that
we're
too.
solving a problem that should have been solved a year and a half ago, and now why are we doing it? That's one of my concerns. And maybe even the wrong building we're putting the information in. It shouldn't be mixed with the sheriff's information. So that's one thing I have a lot of concerns about. The next question, and Jacob, this would be for you. When you put it out to bid, whether it be the jail, this, all throughout the county, one company has already instilled all the equipment. Doesn't that make them by far the low-cost bidder the next time? Because they have the knowledge, they have the equipment, someone else has to rip out that equipment and put in their own equipment. So they're gonna win the bid anyways.
That's correct, Commissioner. But I just want to clarify something too. You say that that's the way we would naturally go. We recently, and I don't want to mention, I don't want to muddy the waters here because it's not something that's been completed, but recently we had a big bid that went out. And we had a company that we all favored. And the bid came back way too high, for our, we just didn't agree with it and decided not to take that company and go with a different company.
But isn't that different than if the equipment's already in a facility? In other words, if you have two software companies, it's one thing. But if you have the cable, the cameras, everything, they have to be taken out, new company puts their stuff in, correct?
It's not to say they have to be taken out, it's just what cameras they use. In other words, when you put out that bid, you tell them what type of cameras, what type of equipment needs to be used so that it is compatible with our environment. So any vendor that can implement those systems will be able to bid on that.
But, and maybe I'm wrong here, but I'm still trying to figure this out. If I already have 20 cameras, all I have to do is bid out the continued service of those cameras, whereas Commissioner Wallace comes in as a new vendor, she has put new cameras in and the service. So obviously, as the current vendor, I'm going to be lower.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I just want to make sure if I'm understanding that correctly.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, please clarify. This is for clarification. Thank you.
No, it's Balco, well, it's not Balco.
Right, that's all right.
I forgot the name.
So maybe just to help.
Speak on the microphone, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sorry. Maybe just to help. So we have these cameras in place. What Jaco's talking about is when the RFP goes out, if I'm understanding, and when we've done this before, we use currently type A camera, brand manufacturer, whatever it is. The RFP is going to go out. We have 500 cameras and this type of camera system. So we need you to bid. If we have a totally new system, they will give us pricing for the wiring. So let's take a location where we have no cameras. They will have to bid what is their wiring cost, what's their install cost for that. They will then also have to bid, unless we want to change types of cameras, they will then also have to bid for this type of camera that's already in the system. What is your price for that type of camera? And then they'll have to do, the cabling piece would be new, and then make sure that anything they do integrates with our current system. If it's existing cameras and existing cabling that may need to, a camera breaks, they will then still say, for a camera that breaks and needs to be replaced, what is your cost for that camera? They may only have to change the camera. They're not going to have to change the cabling because the cabling exists, unless for some reason down the road that whole cabling would need to be replaced.
So for clarification, if it is going out to bid, not the replacing cameras, I'm not talking about that, but day one, will a new vendor have to do mass replacements, or will they be using what's already in the prison, in this warehouse, wherever?
They will use
Whatever is there.
Whatever is there.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Zong?
Thank you, Chair. I think this might be the first time I agree with Joe Romano. I have no problem approving this $49,700 because we just approved a $1.9 million IT infrastructure that has not even been bid out, so I don't understand what the big deal is. I still don't understand why this space has never had video surveillance. I know you guys tried to answer that already, but I understand, that there is a great need for that. And so my question would only be, this equipment, is it something that we would own? Or could we get this equipment, or is it going to be leased?
The equipment will be owned. Once it's installed in our facilities, equipment belong to us. We look at around a 5-year replacement schedule, but we're not rigid on that. Really what determines that is the technology behind it, because the cameras last quite long. And we recently, actually, in the last 5 years, started switching our cameras over from analog to digital. Obviously that's different cabling, that's a complete different way of doing it, but that allows us to bring data back to Comtech and also for people to access the camera system on the network and not, through standalone systems. There's a lot of those things that happen that in the background that we try and make sure we keep in mind when we do this.
Okay. So my last question is regarding the terms and conditions. It says that the fee doesn't include permits or inspections. Do you anticipate any additional costs beyond the $49,000 that was seen here?
I don't expect additional costs. The company that we've used up until now, Motor City Electric, they come in and they do the assessments, everything, and then we go out and do it. From a permit standpoint, there's really not permits needed as far as I know in a building facility like that. That comes into play when you have fiber and all sorts of stuff and it runs across buildings and things like that. But there's nothing like that in this case.
Thank you, Jago. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Hall?
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Song, you took my first 4 opening sentences exactly as I was going to state them. So I don't know if that means you, I, and Commissioner Romano are agreeing, because that would be a uniqueness in itself. To add clarity to this, Commissioner Wallace and Commissioner Farrington were going and talking timelines. The first you guys showed up, not you, Ernest,
Commissioner Hall, I'm going to ask them, would you speak in your microphone, please?
Only to please you, Joe, if you turn your hearing aid up, but okay.
It's up. I got it all the way up.
Okay, thank you. We were talking about a food pantry and cans and stuff like that, and now the scope of what's in the warehouse is much greater than we were led to believe or was ever discussed. What you're looking for is a surveillance system. You're not looking for a burglar alarm system that anybody that has that amount of material stored anywhere is going to have some type of surveillance system. if not for all the reasons you stated for insurance purposes. And that's critical to what you're trying to do. So when we first got this, it was a little bit different than what we're hearing now. And Commissioner Kraft has been trying to establish a timeline here. During this pandemic, I'm not so sure there is timelines anymore. But there's going to become a point where the timelines as they relate to COVID aren't going to be acceptable reasons for doing things, I would think, or hope for. So the bottom line here is there should have been a request when the warehouse started filling up, had maximum utilization or a larger utilization, and we needed surveillance. And it cost $49,500, and you want to use the source that has been used in the past to get it done expediently so we can protect the investment in the warehouse. Is that a good summation?
Yes, that's correct, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I want to go back and thank Commissioner Zong for the opening few statements. We just approved $1.9 million in licensing agreements that we don't have a clue what those are going to protect. But this case, we do know what's going to be protected. It's hard goods. Any business would be doing this. And I want to wish you the best on the RFP for all the surveillance and security in Macomb County, because I got to believe when that bid comes to us, we're in the multi-millions of dollars, is just my guess. So with that, thank you, Chairman. And I hope I spoke loud enough at the end there.
Jaco, if I understood you right, you estimated it would take a couple months to do the RFP for the one vendor to support all our systems. And I don't think that RFP will come back for millions of dollars, Commissioner Haw, because what Jaco's talking about is maintaining the systems, not replacing all the systems. So we're going to take all our, correct me if I'm misunderstood you, we're going to take all the existing surveillance systems and have one vendor maintain them. So if there's issues with them or they need to be repaired or whatever, that one vendor would do that. So initially, the RFP is actually for zero money,
That's correct.
and it would only affect us as we have new systems and repairs going down the road, not millions of dollars.
I hope you're right, Chairman.
We have a surveillance budget in IT of $50,000 a year. So as priorities come about, that's how they are being treated. And then once we have a project or the next project, we come to this board and ask for permission to move forward with that specific project.
Now, I'll also point out that the records that we've talked about that are there have been there for a long time, and nobody seemed to be concerned with them. Also, the buildup of the materials has been going on for months and months, and all of a sudden, we have a panic. We could have had this conversation 6 or 8 months ago, gone out for a bid, and had the system in for months and months already, but we let it go too long. I like Jaco's idea of going out for an RFQ or RFP, whatever, to get one vendor to do our maintenance and then have that vendor put it in. I'd like to see us deny this request, have Jaco go out to do his RFP, let this be the first project we give to the new vendor. That way we do have it bid out. We're doing it per the rules that we like. It's only going to delay this for 2 months, and by our inactivity, we've already delayed it for 6 or 8 months anyway. So I don't see that 2 months more for us to do it right would be a big deal. And you want to stand behind, you think it would only take 2 months for an RFQ?
Yeah, the only complexity from our standpoint is this is in our 2021 budget. And, you know, that's obviously, from my standpoint, important. If we don't do it then, I will have to use next year's money for that.
Well, I'm sort of interested in following our procedures and doing it right. And I like your idea of getting one vendor to do all the maintenance on all the security systems so that we have only one place to deal with, and let if we have individual maintenance contracts on bits and pieces here and there, let them all run out and turn them all over to our one vendor. So I'd like to see us deny this and have you go out immediately for an RFQ. Thank you. Commissioner Kleinfeld?
You just said something very interesting. You said this was in the 2021 budget, which was created over a year ago.
Yes.
Which means you've known for a year that it was an intent to do this, correct?
I did not know for a year. Obviously, Commissioner, 2020 was a tough year for all of us.
Yes, right, yes.
I had over 60 projects that came to my office midway through last year. We're still working on some of those projects. They all need to be completed by the end of this year. So from a priority standpoint, we had to prioritize and do everything that we could to move forward. We have a committee, a public safety committee, that meets once a month. Brandon from Emergency Services is in charge of that. That meeting we stopped having during COVID for a very long time. I went to Brandon probably about 3-4 months ago because I heard from Ernest that they would like to put this in place. I went to Brandon, I asked Brandon, can we prioritize this? Because that committee is the committee that needs to approve which building or which facility is next. And agreed at that point in time that we're going to do this project. So that's how this came about.
Okay. And I understand the chaos and the busyness. I don't think we're actually talking about doing the project. We were talking about doing the RFP for the project. But the other thing is Commissioner Van Sickle touched on what my question was. Once we do this project, this isn't going to be part of the RFP because it's done. So the RFP is for future. He said maintenance, but I'm sitting over here thinking, wait a minute, we just did 1.2 million at the jail. We're doing this. There might actually be a plan to modernize or update like the entire surveillance system if you're looking to do an RFP. So I'm asking, is this a much bigger project that's in the works that may be done by pieces, but is there in the works if the jail was 1.2, a much bigger project in the next 3 years?
The situation is this is an ongoing thing, just like computers, it's ongoing. This building right here was finished, when was it? 2017, 18. These cameras in this building is coming up on 5 years. I think in 23, they will be 5 years old. So at that point in time, we will then do an assessment and see, do we need to replace this or do we need to wait? Same thing at the Comtech building. That was done in 2013. 14, those systems were put in place. Those cameras are already old. I had 2 this week that broke.
So we are likely not talking about maintenance as much as we are probably, and I'm not opposed to it, but we're probably talking about replacement in a number of areas.
In some of the areas. That is correct.
And is everything digital yet, or are we still working on that?
We're still working on that. In the jail, there's still cameras that's not digital, for example. We have some outlaying facilities that still has digital cameras.
Okay, so over that 3-year period, do you have kind of a rough estimate about the amount of money you think we're going to need to spend? Not exactly, you haven't put it out, but to get you where you want to be in 3 years?
That's hard to say. If I stick to a 5-year replacement plan, I would say about $750,000. If we stretch that replacement later than that, probably 200,000.
And so
at the
that's
most.
really for almost everything else. Was the jail a lot more expensive because it's a jail and there's security issues and things have to be wired a certain way and they have to be tamper-proof and all of that? Was that the reason that would have been more expensive?
That is, whenever we run any drops in the jail, it is expensive.
Okay.
It's a given. And it's the most expensive facility that we have when it comes to running, cables and connections and things like that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Zinner?
I just wanted to ask and mention, isn't there a lot of equipment outside of that building that you'd like to keep an eye on too?
We
At
do
different
have-
times of the day or night?
Yeah, we do have the vehicle fleet out there. We do have the barbed wire fence with the gate access code. I'm not sure what equipment might be stored there in the future, but, part of this could assess interior and exterior.
Yeah, well, with what I saw there was quite a bit. If it's not going to stay, that's one thing, but at least if something was damaged somehow, when no one's watching, you'll have a camera to.
Absolutely.
Someone had mentioned that to me, is why I brought
Absolutely.
that up. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Brown?
Jay, you want to get this project started before the year end, before the budget runs out. That's really what this is about, right?
Yeah, from my.
I mean, it's
from
not a
my
question that
standpoint.
the building's being unsecure and that stuff's running out the door, as we were originally led to believe, mistakenly.
Yes.
So the question comes down, do we want to grant them the permission to get this done now or just roll it into the next project? I don't see there's a rush. There hasn't been a rush to this point to get it done. We're going to do the same work. I'm inclined to support the chairman on this one. Thank you.
To Commissioner Kleinfeld's point, we know we're going to have maintenance every year, every month on a camera someplace or another on the system. But going forward, you're right, the big dollars would be in installing new systems. But by doing it through the RFP that Jaco suggested he wants to go get, it would give us a better way to estimate those costs because we'd have that hard quote in hand.
Yes, the reason for my question was to establish if there was a plan of that nature.
Okay.
As opposed to thinking there's going to be maintenance and then finding out later there's a plan.
Is there this is a question possibly for Chair Brown or for others, is there a way we can allocate money this year but not spend it until next year? Or does the bills have to come in this year?
Do it this year. We can't. It's in the budget. We got to.
Well, I mean, I would disagree with that. I think there's money in the budget every year that
That question was for Chairman Brown, and you're interrupting.
Actually, he said he
Please let him
didn't.
speak.
Okay, but he did say he didn't know which one it was for. But I will shut up.
You're not, okay, thank you. Chairman Brown.
Listen, it's in the budget this year. We can, either we do it this year or we don't. I mean, Commissioner Kleinfeld's right. There's always budget left over in the budgets every year to take care of it. So it's not a crisis. This is not a crisis if we postpone it. It's not a crisis. I'd say, in my opinion, let's turn this down and roll it into the next project and push it off to next year. That's what I say.
And do the RFP.
And do the RFP,
Have
of
Jay
course,
do the
yes.
RFP, yeah. Okay, seeing no other commissioners' comments, please vote.
Voting yes.
Okay, we're voting yes to spend the money right now, or no, in which case Jaco will go out for the RFP and we'll spend the money next time.
Motion fails 4-7. Commissioners Wallace, Farrington, Matuzak, Vansickle, Kraft, Brown, and Kleinfeld voting no.
Thank you. Item 7, public participation. This is an opportunity for anybody in the public to speak on anything at all that they want to for a limit of 3 minutes. Public participation going twice. Public participation third time. Hearing none, that's closed. On to commissioners' comments. Commissioner Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've spoken on every item today. Might as well throw in some commissioners' comments. I wanted to congratulate our Veterans Department for being named, well, and the county as a whole for being named Veteran Friendly County of the Year. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Laura Rios, the whole department, and everybody in the county that does so much for our veterans. And thank you to our veterans, and happy Veterans Day tomorrow. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Wallace.
Thank you. I just wanted to bring up the fact that the Christmas parade is back on. If you guys did not see that, it was canceled, but now it's back. So with that said, Commissioner Song and myself were talking about the Board of Commissioners being involved if you are available on the 20th, which doesn't give you a lot of time, but that's the time that was open. So not this Saturday, but next Saturday. We were thinking about possibly getting a banner and walking together in the parade before Santa comes. And then maybe even, if anyone else wants to be involved, handing out candy, things like that. So just, us coming together and agreeing and being together, and showing our county that we do work well together. So that is an option if you are available. I can give you more information, but we have spoken with Chairman Brown on it as well. And then if anyone at all wants to individually, on your own, donate to the parade, you can do that as well. I can give you the information of the person that has taken charge, and anything would be helpful. And if you know of kids, in your community that want to volunteer, we would love to have more youth activity and involvement as well. So, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Zinner.
I'm glad that Phil made that announcement. Did you add that there was another veteran worker, Carrie, I forgot her name now. I went to that event. My husband told me to go, and I said, well, I was thinking about it. So it was at the base in a hangar, and it was, you wouldn't have known it was a hangar. It was pretty decked out. And it was nice. Laura got her award. It was for the county, and for what they had accomplished, as he said. And one of the other workers, Katie Carroll, I think is her name, received an award for what she did also. And there were several Macomb workers there, and I got to speak with them. It was great, but it was a really nice night. Thank you.
Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Just on that lines, my husband got a Happy Veterans Day card, I think, from the State Department of Veterans Affairs or whatever it was yesterday, and I don't think I've ever seen that before. I was just staring at it like, what? What is this? So it's nice to see that there's a push at several levels of government to reach out to these guys. Thank you.
Any other commissioners? Seeing none, we're done with commissioners' comments. Support, motion by Romano and support by Zinner. Please vote.
We get along very well.
Motion passes 11-0.